Welcome to the Education Exchange. I'm your host, Jeremy Calles, Superintendent here at Tolleson Union High School District. Here on the Education Exchange, we aim to enlighten our parents and empower our students. And today's conversation is going to be around what are the hot topics the teachers are thinking about most. And we have some of our high profile teachers here with me here today. I'm going to let them go ahead and introduce themselves, starting with Melissa.
Hi, I'm Melissa Germscheid. I am a physics teacher at West Point High School, and I also serve as the proud president of the Tolleson Union Education Association. We are the labor union for educators across the Tolleson Union High School District.
My name is Michael Connor. I teach at Westview High School. This is my 14th year here in the district. I teach government, and I'm also the advocacy and bargaining chair for the Tolleson Union Education Association.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Barnett. I'm the Exceptional Student Services Department Chair at Sierra Linda, and I am the proud Vice President of the Tolleson Union Education Association.
All right. Thank you all for coming on to the show. Let's tee off the conversation. We'll start first. What's top of mind for teachers?
Sure. First and foremost, teachers, educators are worried about safety and security. That means personnel. So if the security staffing, we're always getting new security staff added every year was one thing that we've been advocating for. Having adequate campus staffing, so everything from our teachers to our nutrition services to bus drivers to front office staff to coaches and assistant coaches. All of those people on campus are what makes a safe campus for both students and for staff. And so that's always a concern. Like, do we have enough supervision on campus? Do we have enough people to ensure that safety for everyone?
I think one of the great things with that, too, is making sure we have preventative measures in place. We added an additional intervention specialist in the last year and ensuring that we have people on that back end to really help target issues before they become a big thing on campus and making sure that we're being as preventative as possible and being proactive.
Yeah, in addition to that, we've got things, just physical barriers we've created. We increased the size of the fences around all of our campuses, and the ones that haven't got that yet are still working towards getting the higher fences. To keep, folks out of our campuses shouldn't be here. In addition to that, we are talking about bringing in metal detectors to try to work with, try to keep some of the, incredibly dangerous things, knives, guns, those type of things off of our campus, which unfortunately is a part of our reality nowadays that do happen from time to time. The most recent big change I've seen, and actually just saw another change after the break, was more in new cameras. And the cameras we have now are AI detecting cameras. They actually have they're not cameras, microphones in them. They can hear sort of what's going on the campus and identifying if there's any issues going on campus, plus a dispatch person now full time that their job and duty is to sit in front of the monitors and see all the cameras that are on campus and to be able to dispatch in a really, really timely manner anytime something really, really poorly goes on. In addition to that, in each of the classrooms, we have emergency buttons we can push in case of an emergency. Fortunately, I've only had to push it twice in the time that I've been here. Both times were for medical issues. And within minutes, we had somebody there to render assistance. And it was very beneficial to me and to the students who were having the issue at the time.
Yes, definitely. We've been having a focus on creating a safer campus and going back to, even when we go back to like 2017, 18, when we first started creating secure lobby areas at each of our campuses. And now we're just leveraging technology. You're not always going to solve everything with staffing, although we did have to add some staffing components with that dedicated dispatch in our command centers to be able to watch the entire perimeter of the campus throughout the day. The AI cameras give us alerts. So if the perimeter is breached, we're still working out some of the kinks so we don't get alerted when cats are walking through the fence line. But we do get those alerts when the perimeter is breached, as well as our halo detectors helping us with controlling the bathrooms. So a lot of tech has been added. People have been added. The physical barriers, like you mentioned, Mike, with the Guardian top fences that have been added to make sure we have a full perimeter barrier, both external and the internal perimeter. And the weapons detectors that you threw out there, we are still on hold because we were waiting for some grant funding that we believe we're going to get for $500,000, and then the government shut down. So as soon as that's lifted, we're hoping that shortly after we will get notification on that grant funding, and then that'll let us know our timeline when we can move forward with weapons detectors. So always open to more ideas on what we can be doing for safety. So as you guys are talking to everybody out there in the field, if they have ideas on other things that we can be looking at, we're always welcome for those ideas.
So I'll just kind of just piggyback off of that. I really do feel safe on our campuses overall in terms of we've got 5 security guards at Westview plus dispatch plus all of our admin team. I really do feel safe on my campus and where I'm at. So I do appreciate the work that the district has done to increase security year after year and be proactive.
We've also been doing a great job with being proactive of we incorporated that touchstone mental health support with school-based services. That's really critical for both our at-risk population. As we know, students with IEPs tend to be more at risk of having mental health issues, being more susceptible to things outside of school. So having those supports in place on campus really helps to bridge that gap as well and make a safer campus.
So that's so safety, kicking it off with safety. That's a perfect tie to our values. I mean, knowing that in our service acronym, safety is the S in our service acronym of values. What's next on the list?
Well, next we have attacks on educators and students. It's been pretty much a national problem now for a little while. It seems to have escalated lately. I'm going to kick it to Mike to give a little more detail first.
Sure. Probably in my area, my realm, I guess, of being a teacher that teaches government, there is a perpetual attack on the curriculum and what can be taught, what can't be taught, how it's being taught. In media, especially some more conservative media, what they believe is being taught in schools is clearly not. I remember going back to a couple of years ago, everyone was super worried about CRT, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what it was. I had to look it up, and I found out that there's a whole mediaverse of people out there telling everyone that I've been teaching CRT, which, as I found out, there's really no possible way I could be teaching it. And even now, our attacks on our curriculum, whether it's how we're covering topics or the way we're covering topics or keeping it appropriate for high school students, is becoming a challenge, especially in today's day and age where cameras are everywhere. All of us carry cameras in our pockets, and so videos taken out of context can be something horrendous for us in the long run. And so I love transparency. I love being open, but some of the attacks on what we're teaching is hard because these groups are claiming that we're teaching things that we're really not, and then creating laws through our legislature to restrict us in ways that restrict our teaching in ways that they didn't anticipate. But we want to be on the safe side, so we don't teach certain things that are leaving a lot of that education on the table for our students.
Absolutely. Adding on to that, I know within the LGBTQIA plus community, people tend to get very scared of, not necessarily in our district, but educators in general feel anxious about, can I put a pride flag up? Can I wear a pin on my lanyard? I know our district does a great job of making sure that we're inclusive and we're supportive of all staff, but also just those claims amongst all schools of indoctrinating youth and book bans and trying to get rid of those perspectives that really help our students feel seen and feel heard and have something to empathize with. We do a good job of making sure that we welcome those unique perspectives, but it can be worrying to feel like, oh no, can I talk about this way, or do I need to go about it this way? And making sure you're inviting those unique perspectives while also towing that very fine line that you need to make sure you have within your classroom.
Yeah, I think there are definitely some defining moments where the board and I can try to assure staff that we are going to support you. We had the anti-DEI letter that came down from the federal government that everybody was being forced to sign. We were the first district to say, no, we're not signing. And it took some courage from the board to be able to be good with that. So I know that doesn't remove the attacks. And the attacks, no matter how baseless they are, still have an impact. We keep hearing this, well, you guys don't even have curriculum, right? Ridiculous attacks. It has no basis, but that doesn't make the sting come out of it when you hear it. And so I can definitely empathize with everyone who's dealing with baseless attacks. I don't have a fix for that right now. It is something that we're just going to have to weather together, and we're just going to have to know that when those are coming, that you will be supported. We see rounds of this where they are going through social media of our staff, like national groups, and finding reasons to reach out to us and say, well, you need to fire this teacher because they said ABC. And I'm like, I actually don't think there's anything that bad about what that teacher said. Plus, they have freedom of speech, and they did this on social media on a weekend. Like, not going to fire a teacher for that. So, we'll keep trying to do our part to reassure everyone that you're going to be supported here. But making the baseless attacks go away, that's a national issue right now against public education. And I'm not sure when that's going to come to an end. Maybe in just a little over 3 years. We'll see.
And I like how you said that weathering together, because one of the big issues I know as a president of a local education association is those attacks on the educator unions right now. I mean, there are national groups that are forming, some that are based right here in Arizona, whose entire goal is to essentially dismantle educator unions. And the problem is that those are made of educators. They're, AEA, NEA, TUEA. We're consist of educators. We're not some random entity who is then making decisions for educators. We are educators making decisions for educators. And so dismantling us means taking away our solidarity and our ability to stick together. And sticking together right now is what's really important.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Being able to, showcase the strength of unity. We saw it with Red for Ed. When everyone stands together, right, then it's going to be far more difficult for them to bring the attacks here. It's when they can divide us and pick us apart is when we're more vulnerable. So definitely appreciate you guys out there keeping our team as a team. All right, what do we got next on the list?
We've got staffing shortages, which is always an issue within the ESS department. Our district does a great job of not only paying teachers well, but recognizing that exceptional student services teachers do have to go above and beyond every single day, whether it's having 5 different preps and also managing a caseload of some of the neediest kids on our campus who need the most supports. But regardless of that, we always have positions that are open. And one of the biggest things within the ESS department is that those positions can't go unfilled. So regardless of how recognized we are and how supported we are, somebody has to pick up that slack. And every single campus typically has like 1 or 2 positions where everybody's trying to work together. And it's always for the betterment of our students and to make sure that we're giving them what they need. But we always have something that we kind of have to step in and fill in for and make sure our students are getting those supports that they legally require.
And I think those staffing shortages kind of carry over, especially with our classified staff. If we don't have a robust classified staff on every campus, at the district office, wherever you may be in the district, it means that we're going to have people who are picking up that slack. And so having great classified staff means having that living wage for them so they can live off of what they earn, but also means being competitive. And we see it all the time that we have somebody that students absolutely love, the rest of the staff absolutely love, but they can't afford to pay their bills. And so it becomes something where we have to constantly look at our classified staff wage. And I love that we do that in Meet and Confer, include everyone together, because we have to remain competitive and keep them on our staff, because the kids absolutely fall in love with that person in the front office or that person that drives the bus for them and that person that gives them their snack at the snack bar every single day. And so having that great classified staff, that makes a teacher's job so much easier to have other adults on campus who not only are part of your team every single day, but are also doing what's needed for students to feel like they have a place where they belong on campus.
Yeah, in addition to that, kind of going back to our last topic about, the attacks on education, this is causing a lot of folks to not want to come into our profession. Pretty much every campus out there, every college out there has seen a decrease in the number of candidates coming into the teaching profession through that education, which leads to nationwide teacher shortages. Even here in Arizona, we are thousands of teachers short just in our state, and we're not even the most populated state. Compound the fact that Arizona is 48th or 49th in education funding, that means there's not a lot of money available in our communities to pay teachers. So it doubly compounds the problem where we're at. A few years ago, when I was talking to a principal at one of our campuses, she happened to mention that she needed to hire some math teachers and that she needed more math teachers than ASU graduated math teachers that year. That's one school in a state of hundreds of schools, even hundreds of districts. It creates a huge problem. And then that burden falls back onto the teachers that are sticking around, which means we have larger class sizes because no matter what happens, those kids are going to come into the door and we got to have a seat in a room for them. We're going to have increased class sizes. The other way it really does impact teachers is that creates a massive sub shortage. When teachers can't come to work, sick, ill, family problems, whatever, what that means is somebody has to be in that room. The last thing we really want to do, which does happen, not in our district, but in other districts, is they can actually take that teacher's class and spread them out among the other teachers. And now that teacher's class size goes from 35, 40 to 45 or 50 kids in the classroom. Some of them just camping out on the ground because there's not even enough desks in that particular room. So subs used to come in kind of three categories when I first started. And it was really, you had the teachers who retired or was coming back for, a couple of days, couple extra bucks, to the folks that wanted to become teachers and were sort of dabbling in to see what they wanted to do. And then you had a third group of people who are educators, but not quite there. Well, nowadays, the way it works is if you want to be a substitute teacher in a classroom and you're willing to do that, you're going to have a classroom full time, because we're going to put those folks into those classrooms because we have this massive teacher shortage, which means that every time there's a sub, that means that teachers have to come off their preps, have to come out of their prep time to fill that classroom, which means now that we have to work after school to do the things we were normally supposed to do. And this is why when you go by school districts on the weekend or at night, there's lots of cars in the parking lot because we're still there. We work a lot of extra hours, and it's okay. I'm definitely not complaining about the workload. I'm not complaining about where we're at. Where we're at's great. With that being said, our district has done phenomenally well through where we're at. Our teachers and our staff are paid what I would definitely consider a living wage from top to bottom. Again, like what Melissa said, from the meet and confer, we decided early on, all of our employee groups are going to be treated equal, whether it's teachers, admin, or our certified staff. They are all educators. All of us work together. I cannot do my job unless the bus drivers bring the kids to school. I cannot do my job unless the ladies in the front office are taking or helping me with attendance or working at the front desk. The nurses, the social workers, all of us work together to treat the whole child so they can sit in a classroom and learn. And that's not even missing the folks in food services who we need to feed our kids, because we all know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If that basic level of need, which is food, shelter, is not being met, that kid is not going to learn in my classroom. We're working as a holistic team to make sure that those kids are getting what they need. But these shortages, because of funding, because of attacks on our communities, attacks on our profession, are really hurting us overall. And hopefully one day we can overcome that.
And I think, we're really being a beacon for how we can overcome that. When you look at the shortages that are being felt, statewide, nationwide, you're not seeing it as much at our district. And there's a reason why you're not seeing it as much at our district. And whether people love us or hate us, they all help promote the fact that we pay well for our teachers and all of our staff. And that has helped that when we put a position out, we usually get a ton of qualified applicants no matter what the position is. That doesn't mean that we don't feel some pain in some places. Our instructional assistance positions are still difficult to keep fully staffed, which that'll have to come up in meet and confer and be a meet and confer discussion on what do we need to do different there, especially when you can flip burgers and be close to the same pay and not be attacked the way you are attacked in education. Our permanent sub positions have not stayed fully staffed, and we know we need subs, and those permanent subs help be a part of that solution. So we still have some areas of focus, but looking at what our neighbors and our colleagues are dealing with around the state, obviously we're in a more blessed position than what they're facing right now. I think when we started the year, a few weeks in, I checked with HR and I was like, so how many teacher positions do we have open? They're like, 2. Like, when you have almost 700 teachers and only 2 vacancies, like that's not something that a lot of people are able to say right now. But we can't stay in a bubble. We do have to be a part of this solution for everyone, because once there are less and less teachers in the profession, like there is going to be no way to, compensate our way out of that. Like that is going to be an issue. And I think some of the things that we're doing here are doing 2 things. One, it is showing people that there is a way to address this solution, even under the current school finance laws and the current makeup of our state. But the other thing is it's drawing that attack of why is that district doing so well and how do we break that apart? So it's a combination of weathering the storm and showing the way, and I'm sure we'll make our way through it. What's our next topic up for consideration?
Well, you read my mind, because the next thing on everyone's mind is the uncertainty in funding. I say I want to start with local first, because obviously we have a bond and override measures both on the ballot. And I know that I've talked to several employees that have asked questions about both of those, and have just this overall worry of what happens next. Because our community has been extremely supportive. We have great facilities that look fantastic for our students. That was one of the reasons that I came here, is looking at, as a science teacher, going from a classroom where I did a lot of labs that were made with string and paper clips and whenever I could hobble together, to now giving my students a more 21st century science experience where they get to use some technology to run their labs, that they get to analyze things using computer software, and where they get, a beautiful classroom that is designed and kept up for science research. It makes a huge difference. And so I'm very appreciative of the fact that we've passed bond measures so our students have those great facilities. The first time I stepped foot in a PAC, our Performing Arts Center at West Point is gorgeous, and I thought surely it's just because it's new school. And then I saw Sierra Linda is being built, and it's beautiful. And our performing and visual arts students deserve those great facilities. It's also great for the community to have these facilities that they're able to rent out and use. And seeing that for our students is important. So I know there is some concern, that wanting to keep that going and have those great facilities and not have the issues that other schools and districts have had with repairs being needed and not having the funds to do so. And I know with the override as well, we have, like we've said, we have this great, robust staff, all these people on campuses that make sure that they are part of the education team for students, everything from our school counselors, social workers, behavior interventionists, to our front office staff, to the, at West Point, we have in-school support specialists who do amazing work with our students who are having difficulty getting to class and being there on time. And having that 15% override means we have those people, and we're able to pay them a wage that attracts and retains them in those positions. And so, every year when we have something on the ballot, there is that uncertainty and that worry of what's going to happen. And I hate that that's part of public education, that we have to go out for things like that to keep our facilities in a manner that is wonderful for our students, that motivates them. Great learning conditions motivate students to learn. But, hopefully we've been putting in the work, talking to voters, and things seem fairly positive when we talk to them. So, we'll see what happens the first week of November there.
I mean, it's when we talk about school funding, especially in Arizona, it's always going to be just a real touchy subject, because we are 48th, 49th in education funding, and our state legislators, for whatever reason, choose not to fund our schools even to the national average. It would be thousands of dollars more per pupil than we are currently getting just to be at the average of where we could be. So what that means is that to increase education funding, we have to go out to our voters in the ways of bonds or overrides, and constantly asking for our voters over and over and over again in a relatively small area for more money to be able to fund our schools and do the things we've been doing. It's a big ask, and it's something we've done over and over again, and the community's consistently supported us, and I feel like we've tried to give back as much as we possibly can to that community. But when I started this district in 2012, 2013, it's coming right at the tail end of the Great Recession, the state froze funding. The state actually clawed back funding from the schools to where the schools actually had to cut budgets at the end of a school year. And that creates massive uncertainty. Every year we have to come up against the aggregate expenditure limit, which is the most asinine thing I've ever heard of. It's the state has already allocated the funding, but then later have to approve to spend over the limit. Like, they've approved to spend over the limit, but now they got to approve again to spend over the limit. And for the last 3 years, every time it comes up, it's just some fight at the legislature, whether they're going to do it or not. And we're sitting on this money that they've already allocated to us, that if they don't vote yes to spend the money they've already allocated to us, then we then have to cut our budget right at the very end of the school year. And that's true for all districts across the state. it creates a lot of uncertainty, especially going forward. How do you budget into the next year if they're telling you, hey, you're going to get this money, but then you may not be able to spend it? How do you make that work for personnel? During the Great Recession, they cut capital funding, district additional assistance, and have never restored it. It's never come back to where it was pre-pandemic. They've put a few extra dollars into that. There was a lawsuit funded by the AEA and a few other groups to force the district or force the legislature to just at least follow the Constitution. And it's just been an uphill battle the entire way. And so again, fortunately for us, our community supported us. So we've been able to backfill those dollars that should have come from the state from other ways. And when folks walk around our campuses, I gotta agree with you, Melissa. It's our campuses, from the oldest Tolleson to the brand newest one, West Point. They all look incredible on staff. Over summer, I just taught summer school at La Jolla just because I wanted something different, see another school. Fundamentally impressed. Beautiful turf fields. They've got shade canopies everywhere. I mean, it looked great there. And the paint looks great. The buildings look great. There's no obvious repair needs that are going on. Obviously things come up. And, I mentioned a couple of days ago that on Monday, when we came back to Westview, half of my building's air conditioning was out and it was hot in those rooms. It was fixed by lunch. And just so we're clear, lunch at Westview is 10:30. So it's pretty early still. And so by 10:30 in the morning, it was fixed and ready to go. So these funding issues are problematic coming from the legislature, and we've got to go back out to our community to backfill those dollars. And that's a hard ask over and over and over and over again. And all it takes is one no vote. And we're in a situation where we're going to make some really tough decisions about what we're going to do. And unfortunately, in some of our rural areas, even some of our suburban areas out here, can't seem to pass a bond or an override. And those school districts are truly hurting.
Mm-hmm. On that note too, so I started at Sierra Linda this year, and I came into tour with the person who I was replacing in May, and then I came back in July, and everything was torn up. There was turf everywhere, there's shade, and I was like, oh, this is nice. It was a great improvement, and the kids even came back and was like, wow, this is magnificent. Another thing with funding is IDEA and Title I. We have great supports in place for our exceptional students. We do amazing things with things like unified sports. Our students have augmentative communication devices. We do things with cooking. We do things with our coffee cart. And all of those things, in part or whole, is somewhat funded by those funds. And if we lose that, we start to lose some of those opportunities, and we have to try and work around other things. But that money is important to making sure that our students are getting the learning opportunities that they need.
Yeah, it definitely concerns at all levels, whether it's federal, state, or local. And it definitely leaves you with that feeling of always having your hand out and saying, thank you, may I have another? Not a position that's great to be in for any district. And when you look at what we've been able to do here, obviously the community support that we've been blessed with for the past 9 years has been tremendous. They've passed every question for 9 years in a row, and that's allowed us to do a lot of the great things that we've been able to do here. It was never an expectation that it was going to have to be that way forever, which is why the three-legged stool needed another leg. And we've been building that other leg, and we're taking intense criticism for it. But, it is my belief that districts need to be able to start doing for themselves. When the state moved towards ESAs and this competition with private schools and the private sector, for whatever reason, people were taking that as it means the private sector can compete with us, and did not want to flip the script and say, no, it's time for us to go ahead and compete with the private sector, which is what we've been doing here and is what is drawing the most intense fire. When you look at what we did for Isaac, that is going to net the district another $7 million while saving a fellow district. When you look at what we're doing with this affordable housing, which will net the district $142 million over the life of the lease, while providing affordable housing for our community, these win-win situations that we are putting together that on paper, a normal person would look at that and be like, that is a great business decision. But if the paper is political, then all of a sudden that narrative changes pretty quickly. No intent to stop that path. We do have to build out that fourth leg of the stool, so we will be less reliant on everyone else, especially when we're seeing funding freezes, government shutdowns, aggregate expenditure limit, and the Prop 123 triggers at the state level. And then on the local, never knowing for sure that we're going to have that vote when we need it. So it's a work in progress. I feel like we're getting closer, but it's always darkest before the dawn. So we'll have to see if we get to a point where we have true financial security and get ourselves into a situation where we're not dependent and reliant so much on all the other traditional streams of funding. So definitely something we're going to continue to work on. And what's our grand finale topic of the day?
We got student absenteeism, which is always the biggest thing I hear from teachers is my kids aren't in class, and it's really hard to get them caught up if they've missed like 9 days in a row, and they show up on day 10 and we're taking a test now. I know something that's been really helpful is we have the extras people to kind of start making those phone calls home when we're noticing that students are chronically absent and just asking why. Because sometimes it's something simple like, oh, I can't get to school because I'm missing the bus because I'm taking care of my younger sibling, or oh, this and this happened and I moved addresses and now I'm displaced. I need McKinney-Vento transportation. But it's hard because that can be very time consuming because in addition to making those calls and talking to students who are absent very consistently, other people have other job duties to perform. And it's that constant balance of let me check on this kid, let me make sure this kid who's currently in my office is okay, and making sure that we're always checking up on our kids to just really ask why. Why are you not coming to school? What's going on and how can we help you?
So along with the just missing school is going to be missing school. They're not there to learn. They can't learn. And so what ends up happening when you get a lot of folks that are missing a lot of class, they end up failing a lot of classes. And in our system, when you fail a class in the high school, they have to retake it to be able to graduate. And so it does impact our graduation rates when we have high absentee rates. And so coming back from the pandemic, we saw a huge explosion in the amount of kids that were missing school. And it does take some outside of the box thinking about trying to get these kids back into our classrooms. And it's been a struggle, and not just for us, but across teaching across the nation, getting these kids in there. We have tried to implement, credit recovery classes, which we had before, which are online classes. They're online classes they take actual while they're in school. It's a stopgap to try to help recover those units, but it's not the same as learning from a teacher in a classroom. But at least it helps get those kids across the finish line that maybe had a bad semester, a bad quarter, a bad year. Look, life happens. And I'm the first one to tell you that I don't know what goes on in every one of my students' home life. I'm appreciative when they get here. And when they do get here, we try to give them the supports they need when I'm aware of it. And we're fortunate to have those supports. But at the end of the day, it's, the absenteeism does hurt. And trying to find ways to get more kids into school, give them more opportunities or different opportunities is something as a district we've tried to grow and become more robust. And one thing that Mr. Calles has brought to the table is let's think outside of the box. Let's come up with something different and try something new and see if we can make a difference in that and just bring the data to the table and see if it's working.
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to our alternative ed folks because Distance Learning Academy, Continuing Education Academy, Lighthouse Academy all do amazing things. And I think that, as teachers, we all teach in the comprehensive high schools, extremely, extremely thankful for the people who are teaching in those 3 academies because, our students, sometimes they just need something different. And so having those options in our district has made a huge difference because I've noticed I have kids who are struggling to get to school on time and maybe they have that conversation with their counselor and they learn about the DLA and I think, well, that'll be something that works for me. And there's nothing better than attending that graduation ceremony for those kids that choose that alternative ed path after struggling for a little while and seeing them work through those struggles and make that graduation. Like those are my favorite graduations to attend, to see kids who have been struggling, who make it through, to see that because, for years, I know when I was in high school, those were just been kids who dropped out. And we know now that dropping out is not the answer to that. Having the kids get to school and get an education in some form is transformative for the rest of their life. And so having the amazing job that Mr. Johnson, Ms. Baumgart do with their academies is much appreciated across the district because we know that they are transforming. They are doing something for those kids' lives that may not have happened in years past. and helping them be successful or find that happiness, find that passion for something that they're going to do past high school.
Can I just, real quick, one thing I forgot to mention is that we do have a pretty robust system on our campus of identifying students to become homeless. And the definition of homeless doesn't mean you are literally living on the streets. It just means you're not living in a stable environment. It can be grandma's house, aunts and uncles' houses. It can be anywhere other than your home with your mom or dad or your guardian. Any couch surfing would count. And so when we identify a student as having that, or I hear that something's going on, that immediately signals a trigger that I get our social worker and our case and our behavior specialists involved, because we have all kinds of resources to help these folks out. In our district, if that kid needs a ride to school, we'll send a Chevy Traverse to pick them up. Other districts, they give them a bus pass and say, just get here when you get here. I had a student last year, the year before, who was living in Mesa, crashed her car, was living with her aunt so she could get to school closer. That qualified her as homeless, and we were able to get her transportation to school. If they need toiletries, we have toiletries that are available to them at no cost. If they need clothes, we have, what's that closet? The Callahan's Closet. We have Callahan's Closet, which is available to them. They can come and get the clothing they need, the shoes they need, including, I've seen bicycles in there that are available to these kids at no cost. So we're doing everything we can possibly do, including bringing in places like Callahan's Closet that are giving our students the resources so that they can become successful, so they don't become that dropout statistic and cross that finish line, so that they can go on to high school. And then what else? What comes next? Kind of Calles' sort of famous phrase, high school.
Yep.
And
Yep. So we have and then with the Callahan's Closet, we're actually looking at expanding and doing even more for not just our students, but our families in our community. We will have the Family Resource Center that is going to be opening with the new district office, and we'll be able to offer much bigger items for our families. So refrigerators, ovens, things of that nature. So we make sure we're taking even better care of our families who are in need. When it comes to chronic absenteeism, which is what's really on the rise nationwide right now, there isn't a silver bullet. It seems to be that there's a bunch of factors that can lead to chronic absenteeism. So a lot of it you guys touched on about figuring out, like, do they have a need? Is it transportation? Is it something else that's holding them back from being able to get here? So we do a lot of work there. We also provide the free breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So, I mean, another incentive for those who needed to be able to come here and get the meals. And we're trying to do more work on engagement and changing how students learn. Westview, we're opening up Dreamscape, and our students are going to get to experience Dreamscape. We'll be the second district in Arizona to implement Dreamscape, which is a virtual reality environment. We're very excited about building out more content in that virtual reality environment to help our students get engaged into their learning. This is their foundation. This is the foundation for them for the rest of their lives. And they're teenagers, and they may not realize how critical this foundation is for their success in the future. And so whatever the reason is, I agree with what Jennifer pointed out from the beginning, which is we got to get to the why. If you tell us the why, if you can clue us in on the reason why you're chronically absent, we can probably help you. There's probably something we can do. Even if you're saying, well, I just don't see how my classes are going to help me in life. Like, give us a chance to explain it to you then. Give us a chance to look at your schedule and see if maybe we need to move some stuff around your schedule. But like, if we can get more of our students to tell us the why, I believe we have a great enough team to help address that why. And so I appreciate all the work that's going on out at the sites right now to work with those students and try to figure out the why so we can start solving those one at a time, no matter how cumbersome that is. Just keep working through it and get them re-engaged into high school. So I appreciate you guys bringing up all these great topics here today, and appreciate you guys coming on to the show to share with all of our listeners. And I appreciate our audience for tuning in once again to the Education Exchange, where we aim to enlighten our parents and empower our students. We look forward to seeing you again next time.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the Education Exchange. Have a question or want to be a guest on our podcast? Email podcast@tuhsd.org for more information. Missed an episode? Catch all seasons of the Education Exchange on your favorite streaming platforms or at www.tuhsd.org/podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week for another episode of The Education Exchange.